Hey everybody, it's time for Tech Talk Thursday. Woo!
Woo.
Neil always gets so excited.
This is
But
excited for me.
he is excited about this month's
Oh, yeah.
topic. Yes, National Internet Safety Month. We have some great tips for you. He's got 8 of them, I think you said, right?
Yeah, eight
8.
tips.
So let's have a conversation about internet safety.
All right, let me share my screen. Hopefully we're seeing the screen.
You're
Should
good.
be. Yeah, I mean, look, it's not a fun topic because we just like to be able to go about our lives, business as usual, right? But the reality is, it's an issue, and as adult ed programs, we need to be thinking about some of the things we're doing a little wider than we maybe once did, especially post-COVID, because there's a lot more online and digital and accounts and all of that sort of thing. So anyway, before we jump into that, as I talk through some things, and these are relevant for programs, for schools, these are relevant for individuals, they're relevant for the students, for families, for all of that. But first thing I want to roll through is I got some stats. I've got about, I don't know, half a dozen or so that I thought were really interesting that point to the issue at hand here. So let me roll through some of those and then we'll talk and see there. Right, so 16% of all US adults state that they would be willing to share their online habits in exchange for receiving a better overall browsing experience. What do you think about that?
Ouch. I don't want someone to know all my browsing.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
No, I do not want to. No, I'm not part of that 16%.
surprise, 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 that might be happening anyway.
Yeah, well,
Even if you
yes.
don't want to
We know
admit it.
they're listening, Neil. We know.
Yeah, so listening, but especially if you're using Chrome, there's a lot of debate about what Chrome is tracking and not tracking, and is it anonymous or not, and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we know ads can show up and stuff like that, but that's a little different too. All right, so hear about this one. 2/3 of Americans are willing to give companies access to their personal information to receive discounts, better products, or better services.
That doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't. It's like norm that you go to a website and then they're like instantly want you to sign up for their email and, oh, by the way, give us your birthday. And yes, it's so norm now.
All the information about your firstborn.
Yes.
And we'll give you a discount. But 2/3 are willing to do that. And I get it. I mean, I think people have minimized the impact of this sort of data or data gathering. And that's part of the reason why they don't give it a second thought. They just roll with it.
I read some article or blog that was recommending that, hey, you don't have to give them your real birth date.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's true. I don't. I can throw it off by a year or two.
Well, let's see if this one surprises you. People are more likely to share their mobile phone number online than they are to share their web browser history.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah.
A little more on that, and again, sharing your mobile phone number is not a major deal. I don't think you'll probably get some texts, and you can usually unsubscribe from those. But
well, I used to not get any of that on my mobile phone because I didn't share my mobile number, and I used our home number for all that.
Oh yeah.
But then it started some of them started being able to recognize that it wasn't a mobile phone. And so I'm like, I had to start putting it, then all the crap came.
Yeah. I mean, I probably get like probably 10% of my texts junk stuff that comes through, and I can usually get rid of it, but sometimes not. But for the most part, I can. Internet users are more likely to trust a social network with their personal data than they are a search engine.
Hmm.
I don't have a year on these. I know it's in the last few,
Mhm.
but since all the issues came about with Facebook, I wonder if that's
Oh,
changed.
yeah,
Um,
that was probably it. I
but I
mean,
mean, let's be real. For most people, it's a choice between sharing with Facebook or Google.
yeah,
That's the choice, right?
yeah, and well, I mean, there's also the most recent too with Twitter, and the
Yeah,
ownership
yeah,
and all of that. So,
yeah. So those are factors. 82%, that's the percentage of US adults who believe that wearable technology will create internet safety concerns. So if you've got a smartwatch, which I
uh-huh,
do here,
uh-huh. I
um,
yep.
most believe that at some point that's going to give us an issue down the line because of the data that's being gathered and the impact of that. Now,
We're being tracked.
yeah, I mean, there's lots of stuff in there that you could say is positive,
Yeah.
right? I have embarked on much more of a healthier approach to life now that I'm tracking some things on my watch a lot more carefully and setting some goals and things like that. Like literally, if I'm looking at my watch at 9:30 and I haven't got my steps for the day, I'll find a way to get more steps in to get to that number, which I wouldn't do if I didn't have it.
True. Yeah.
Uh,
Mine
so
reminds me that I haven't gotten my steps in the hour, so I'll get up and walk around my
yes,
basement.
yes. Exactly, and you'll get up and do something, which are all great things, but the implications for that is, I think, the concern, and that's part of what we sort of want to think about today. Only 39% of US consumers are concerned about the data that cookies are able to obtain about their online habits.
Now, I have
We're not
known the
talking about
danger of
chocolate chip
cookies.
here.
I've known the danger of cookies for
Yeah,
some time.
yeah,
And I mean, just the havoc they can play on your computers too.
yeah. So these are things, and one last one, only half of people who access the internet regularly will regularly read privacy policies when they're offered.
That doesn't surprise me at
Uh,
all because people
I'm
don't
surprised
read
it's
stuff.
that high,
Yeah.
um, on that side. But these are all part of the bigger picture that I want to talk about today, because those are all indicators of where we are as a society, and the fact that our filter has sort of gotten a little coarser, if I can use the word, meaning we're letting more in, where once we were not. And I know some of you out there are like very vigilant on this. I've had this conversation with some of you, but since the pandemic, I feel like the pandemic weakened some of our defenses because we relied on some of the tools and resources during that time. And we either haven't gone back around to take a look and see how we're looking at things, or we just, have never did it in the first place. So
I
I
think
just want to come up with 8 things for you to think about. And if you haven't thought about these, you need to, because they will impact you as an individual. They can impact your school or your program. Now, most schools that I work with have an IT department associated with them from their school district or college or something like that. And they're very vigilant on so many levels. In fact, I find too vigilant sometimes, because when we type, in a URL, we've got the word adult in there, it blocks it,
yeah.
which is not good for adult ed. Good for other adult, but not this one.
Yeah.
And so the vigilance is a little strong sometimes, but it's important that we do that, and we do that on behalf of the students in the program as well. So, all right, let me run through a few. Number one, secure your social media. What do I mean by secure? So you've got Instagram, you've got Twitter, you've got Facebook. You probably could be Snapchatting or TikToking or all those things, Twittering, and that sort of thing.
Well, you know all the terms.
Oh
I'm
yeah, yeah,
impressed.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a whiz. I mean, there was a day when I was on everything. I look at those images right there now, and I'm not even on half of them. So, it's not my world. And there's some cool things that they bring to the table. the ability to update, the ability to share, the ability to laugh at people's funny stupidity, all those sort of things. But you need to be aware of a couple things here. You should review the privacy settings you have for each of your accounts. And if, you know, what you really should be doing is restricting the access for yourself, for your kids, things like that, people like that, to just those who are connected, and know what you say, because some people have automatically, for example, set up that when they share it on Facebook, it goes to Instagram. Well, have you reviewed that to see if that's what you want today? Have you thought about that? And just make sure that things are, you know, like on Facebook, you can set things to visible to friends only. Or if you're using a Twitter account in your school program and that sort of thing, make sure it's protected so that only people you follow can see your tweets. That's important. Here's one you don't think about too often. I know that we're part of this process for programs where we ask students to indicate they're okay or not okay on being shown in photographs representing the program or things like that. So, you know, you need to probably be thinking about, do I need to blur the face of some students before I share this picture or something like that? So be careful, be thinking about it. And I would always land on the side of safety and say, you know what, if I'm not sure, let's not push the button and send this up there. Let's be safe on that and make sure that you've got your permissions set right. Okay, number 2, you need to use sites that encrypt data. All right. And again, this may be weird phrases and words and concepts to you. I'm going to boil it down. The bottom line is this, that if your data is not protected, hackers, snoopers, third parties, whatever, can grab your data when it's going from one place to another. And what does that look like? It looks like the fact that in a URL, you have a HTTPS at the beginning. The S needs to be there. And especially in Google, by the way, the S stands for secure or encrypted, which means that any data that flows is packaged in a way that if you're not the authorized end user or party, it's not usable to you. So that's the advantage of that. The other thing is the padlock up in the top corner. You see it in Chrome, especially there, and you'll see a little padlock on the site. You can feel better about visiting those sites because they have gone to that extent. And as we build sites and help programs with that, that's the only choice we will make to make it secure that way and have that security certificate. But you know what? Here's another one. Check the privacy policy of any apps you're using. Now, iOS, Apple users, they protect you on your behalf, which is good in this case, but bad in the sense that you don't get a say. On the Android side, that's not always the case. So if you're an Android user, you need to be a little more careful because Google doesn't get in the middle of that. And you need to check some of the privacy policies or tools you're using, apps and things like that to see if you're secured and you're okay. And that could be a whole nother investigation there, but that's a big one to be thinking about there. All right, number 3, you got to have a plan. Mistakes happen, right?
Absolutely.
You might have accidentally in the background captured a student's name or address in a photo that you posted on social media, and now it's out there. You could take it down, but we know that somebody could have grabbed that before you took it down. So what do? The number one thing you do is you have a plan. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're taking care of stuff beforehand and being careful about what you're posting. But you probably need to have a data breach policy that you can follow through. And a lot of programs have those. But like, you know, let's say somebody got in and got the data that your students have provided? How would you secure that? Would you provide identity theft service to every student as a result of that? These are some of the things that you have to be thought through on that. And so if your program is not affiliated with an IT department that has one of these, you might want to think about having a specific plan to take care of the accidentals, take care of the things that we might not think about or be aware of on that side of things. And it's a pain. I mean, I'll be the first to say it's a pain. It's a pain if it happens. It's a pain to prepare for just in case it happens. But I can tell you what, it's a bigger pain if you have no plan and all of a sudden it happens. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
And at its base, at its core, you have to have the ability embedded somewhere into your processes to alert everybody that this has happened. You can't just sweep her under a rug and move on. And nobody will know. We'll just move. You gotta take care of business there and let people know. Okay, next one would be to beware of public Wi-Fis. Why? Well, they're unsecured. This Wi-Fi is open and it's open for all. Now, you may not be able to go to an unsecured Wi-Fi, get on and see what others are doing, but that doesn't mean to say there aren't people who can do that. And that's why we have secured Wi-Fi networks and that sort of thing. So what do? Well, you know, if you go through a VPN, which is a virtual private network, and again, funny letters that probably mean very little to some of you who are watching this, but what it does is it means that you are no longer going through that public unsecured Wi-Fi, you're going through an encrypted connection. So if you have that available, that is a best practice on that. If you're trying to work remote at a coffee shop, or students are doing that, or some other location, using the Wi-Fi at the library or things like that. If you're not having to log in to get into it, then it's open and it's available.
That's what I was just going to ask you. How do you know the difference?
Yeah.
And so it's not just about having a password to get into the public Wi-Fi. It's about actually having to basically create an account. Like it's library, you have to have your library card in order to get on the Wi-Fi.
Yeah. That is a much safer way of doing things. I think there's 3 levels here. You've got the completely open, just connect to the network and you're off and ready. You've got, I have to log in through a couple steps, verify. Like, for example, my wife and I, when we're traveling, we stay at Hilton Properties a lot. In order to get into their Wi-Fi, we have to put in our last name, which they have spelled wrong in the system. So I always forget what they've done with it. And our room number. And then we're allowed access in. Much more secure than just open. And then, of course, you've got a completely other set of scenarios where you have an account. And when it's a public Wi-Fi, but you're going in and creating an account. Much more secure way of doing things. And hey, if you've got it, I often just use my own phone's hotspot mobile data plan as a way to access. And you've got it all in your hands. Now, as long as you've got it secured on your end, it's just like going through any secure network and that sort of thing. So just some ideas there, but you just need to be aware that public Wi-Fi is not all you would think it is. It's not free Wi-Fi in the general sense. I'm a Comcast customer, and all around the Indy area, at least, if there's a Comcast available, I can log in through Comcast, through my account with Comcast to get internet, which is nice sometimes as well. But that's different than just this open network that you have that you can get into and people can mess around with stuff. And if you are on one of those, sometimes you can't do anything about it. You jump in on it. Just be aware that if you're going to make an online payment at a store, you could be giving up your credit card information. things like that are part of the thought process of what you want to think about. And again, COVID brought this to a fore where people were working remote or working, maybe traveling and doing it, or working out of coffee shops and things like that. And so that's an important one to be aware of. All right. Number 5, use strong and unique passwords. Oh boy, we could spend forever on this.
Yeah, couldn't we though?
I know you love your 1, 2, 3 ABC password. Yes, I've cracked some of your passwords out there. But you've got to get a little stronger on this password business, or you're going to run into trouble. So here's the 2 things I recommend is 1, use a password manager. I use one called, well, what do I use now? True something from McAfee, actually. What is my password manager? TrueKey, that's it. It's called TrueKey. Okay. And I have to put my thumb in and have it read that it's me, and then put in my password in order to get into it. Then I can sort of apply passwords over that. On the computer, it's a little easier to get in and out of, but that lets me put any password on any site and not worry so much about having to try to remember it.
So how do you feel about the auto password managers that are in phones?
Well, again, that depends on your service again. So like I have a Samsung phone. I use that within the Samsung infrastructure, and I have an account there. Now, again, potential problem, Samsung gets hacked, right? So that is your potential problem. Okay. So if you want to be really safe and secure, pick one and just use the one.
Okay.
Google's password manager is a good one. I mean, you have to have access to your Google account, and Google accounts are getting more and more difficult to just like get in and out of. So, some
like
programs
the Google password manager. Yes.
Yeah, some programs I know have 2-factor authentication, which means you have to type your password in and add a code from an alternative device. There's a lot
of things that are asking for that too. I mean, just when I logged on to YouTube this morning, it was saying you need to set up 2-factor identification.
Yeah. Which again, if you think about it, I may have cracked your password, but now I also have to have access to your text messages on your phone in order to do that. That's much more secure than just a password. And it's a pain. I get it. I talk to people all the time. I'm like, why in the world do we have to do this? But IT departments are knowing that, that if you don't know this, there are millions of stolen usernames and passwords every single day. And they're sold to cyber criminals on the dark web who basically they create programs that go to sites and they enter everything that they've got or try passwords in milliseconds are cracking those because they're just running through all these things. So if you have some weak, lame little password, it's not going to take hardly anything to get into it.
So don't use password. Is that what you're saying, Neil?
What? Sorry?
Don't use password.
Password is not a good one. I should have made a list of all the passwords not to use.
Not to use, yeah. We can do that another time.
Yeah, we'll do that another day for sure. But that's really important to understand. But alternatively, try to make it at least 8 characters long, your password, and make it a mix of letters, numbers, and special characters. All right. I would post mine on there, but of course that would be a problem.
Yeah, don't share your password.
Don't share it on there, but come up with something that has capitals and lowercase and special characters and numbers and all of that you can remember if you're gonna go down the memory bank road.
Yeah,
but some sites will make you change it anyway, and now your little system's out the window.
Yeah, so that's why a password manager is actually really key, because you don't have to remember all the craziness that you put in there.
Oh, absolutely. A Excel spreadsheet is not a password manager.
What?
I know. This is it. You're in trouble.
Wait a minute. Does that mean like a little book isn't one either?
Well, it's great if it never leaves your office and nobody ever comes in, right? But if you're out and about in the community somewhere and your little book gets dropped, you could be in real trouble there. There's just a million things people do that are today not really great. Now, obviously, you can put a password on your passwords in a Excel document, which is all well and good until somebody cracks that or you forget it, because it's a very difficult, from what I understand, to crack a
I don't like
Excel
the
sheet.
whole I don't like the whole passwords on Excel, so I'm not going there.
We've got to move on from that one. But the bottom line is you've got to create strong, unique passwords, and your brain's not going to remember them all. Let's be real. So you're going to have to find a password manager that will handle that. And there's lots of them out there. They are going to probably cost you some money, cheapskates out there, but they're going to save you a whole bunch in the long run, I believe. And that's what's important there. So make sure you're fixing that. Yep. We have dog agreement, I believe. So watch out for phishing scams. What's a phishing scam? Well, it's somebody who's trying to trick you into thinking they are somebody else than they are. And they want you to download something or click something with the simple reality of the moment you do that, you have allowed them into your world. And they're probably installing a little hidden piece of software that when you go to type in your passwords in future, it goes, oh, when you go to this link, this is the keystrokes that are required to get in. And now they've just captured your information. You need to look at the sender's address and don't click on anything suspicious. And literally within minutes of us doing this presentation, I got one of these. And so I quickly screen grabbed it and I dropped it on the screen. Here it is. Here's the exact email I got just a little while ago. The subject line was confirmation for antivirus of Norton. Right?
I got one of those.
You got one of those too?
Yes.
You're part of the BCG there.
I don't know if it came from him, but yeah, I got one of those too.
And then when I opened it up, by the way, when you have to click the little arrow to see who it came from and that sort of thing. When I opened it up, there it is, my timestamp 106. That's not from Norton. And don't click on the little attachment down there at that point to say, oh, maybe I did buy something. Hopefully you'll know if you did or you didn't. And if you don't know, because I get these all the time now, here's the clues. Number one, antivirus of Norton is probably not who they are. They are Norton antivirus for starters. They would be capital letters, not lowercase. So that's your clue number one. Clue number two, Deneo Spindler 101@gmail.com is not going to be an official Norton email address. And then thirdly, hopefully in the recesses of your mind, you'll know whether or not you did something with Norton recently or not. So you can at least identify whether that's reality.
And I want to add that whenever it comes to these emails, sometimes they're even better than this guy, and they might actually make the name look like it's from a different email address. But then whenever you do click that little arrow to see the whole thing, you realize that it is actually from another email address. So some of them are really good at hiding it even better.
And they can buy a domain that may include the words Norton in it, or antivirus or something like that. I mean, this is a pretty lame one, I will say. There are ones that are much better at trying to trick us in that regard. But they can buy, like I saw one, the California Student Aid Commission, their website is csac.ca, right? And .gov is the actual full address for their website. Well, somebody did a phishing scam from them, and they did csac.ca. Okay, that looks right. .com instead of .gov, and just tricked a whole bunch of people because they made it look like it was coming from the California Student Aid Commission.
There's
that side.
actually a lot of scams going on currently with the unemployment benefits. You know, the pandemic caused that a lot, but
Yeah.
I've been getting text messages that my unemployment benefits have been released, and all I need to do is click here and I can receive my check. So,
well, and the key on that one is, right, I've not claimed for any unemployment. I'm
well, there's
employed. I mean,
that.
unless somebody told me didn't tell me something.
But they do even they even put it out on their website about that, and they
Yeah.
do have a fraud line. So I mean, what do you think about whenever these things come, making sure that you report them, or you know, you report that spam or you report that fraud? How do you feel about that, Neil?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. I don't know that it's an easy process to work out where that would go. I wouldn't even necessarily know where I could forward that email or copy it and paste it somewhere or something like that.
Yeah,
the number one thing you can do is just be vigilant
absolutely.
and be very careful what you click on and what you don't. If you think it potentially might be something you should be looking at, so there's some facts behind all of this, I would actually go ahead and open up my email browser in an incognito window so that nothing else that I am logged into could be potentially affected, and I could take a look at that. That's if.
Yeah.
But I would just be careful. And look, Norton is not going to send something like that.
No.
It's going to look different and feel different. Third idea would be to search your email, to literally just search your email for that company, in this case, the Norton example, and see what other emails you've received from them and compare it.
Absolutely.
Key here, vigilance.
Vigilance.
Right.
Got it.
And I wanted to help identify what phishing is. If you've heard the word, this is phishing. They are
It's not
attempting to, it's not that, the PH kind, and they're attempting to get your info through a very tricky mechanism that we know gets a lot of people. All right, couple more here. You got to know a site's terms and conditions. When you on a website, especially when you join a website, so social media is included in this, or you download an app or you use an app, and that you need to be aware of the terms and conditions that you've agreed to when you're downloading or using that app or website.
Wait a minute, Neil. Does that mean that I need to actually read something?
Yeah, it does. You got to go through what they're saying. I mean, look, I'll be the first to admit, I don't read most of the things that I agree to.
But skimming it is at least a minimum requirement,
that's a
right?
good first start. But here's the thing. I'm usually doing it within a context of things that I already am comfortable with and know about, number one.
Yeah.
Here's what you don't know though. When that app scans your face to identify that it's you and logs you in, they could be sharing any of the data that is within that particular app or website. Maybe your name, your browsing history, your contact information, whatever it is. And that's the risk by not reading that. Because see, you at no point can go back after them, because in their terms and conditions, they say they may share their information. You've agreed to that. You're now locked in.
I think the scariest terms and conditions that I ever read was whenever I was considering doing one of those DNA tests, you know, the spitting in the tube. And when I read the terms and conditions, I decided not to. So yeah, and
I mean, and let's be real, sometimes you got no choice, right? I mean, we think about a hospital going for a surgery, you're going to get a similar type document, and it's basically sign this or say goodbye.
Yeah,
so that surgery you're about
right.
to get is not going to happen. But and in that case, they're trying to hold themselves harmless against you suing them, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just something to think about. Next time you're confronted with that, just take a glance down through it at least. You don't have to be an attorney to be able to read it, really.
Yeah.
You just need to look at it and understand what's being expected of you and what could happen with your information.
And we could have a whole tech talk just on this if we
probably every one of these.
Yeah, actually, yeah, you're probably
you know, and to be real, certainly within adult ed programs, you know, there's software that's being used that there are terms and conditions that have to be agreed to for staff and for students. But often it's ignored and it's just skipped through on that. All right, number 8, last one I've got is be careful when sharing your personal data. We sort of covered this already, but I just wanted to point that out a little more clearly. It's, you know, it's a pretty obvious one. At least be aware of exactly who might read or ultimately be reading what it is you've just submitted. You know, it doesn't take much of an information breach, an email address or a weak password or something like that, and somebody can grab a whole bunch of different things. Here's an example, though, that some of you are probably familiar with. Something like just sharing with a friend your Netflix account. You log into your Netflix account, opens you up to sharing personal information that you haven't thought about, probably. Other accounts like that where you're sharing in that those are things that I would be very careful of today, because you don't know what that other person is doing with your account on that side.
So what do you think about the social media stuff that was going around for a while, where it's like, answer all these questions? What's your favorite color? What's this? What's this? You know, and it's all personal information. And honestly, whenever I look through some of it, it's like, if there's anything that I've ever used for a password, then I'm like, no, you know, because who was your first dog? How many people use
and if you really look at some of those, they could be password phishing, you know, because of the type of questions.
I think they are sometimes. So I won't answer any of those.
I would be careful, no doubt, and especially since we know Facebook, for example, has a proclivity to want to share their information with others that you agreed to, but you didn't know you agreed to it.
Yep, it's in there.
That's the biggie.
Yeah.
On all of that. That really is the biggie with that. So bottom line is this: 2 things that I want to talk about when we're talking about internet safety. Number 1, make sure you have really strong passwords. All right, and this is something as adult ed providers you can help your students with, because I don't know that students often have thought this through necessarily as well. And if there's an opportunity for some digital education, this would be a great one to add into the mix. What is a strong password? How do I create one? And helping students to accomplish that. And then secondly, I would say, out of all of this, if you can, get yourself a passwords manager app that keeps them, saves them, is secure, and you can rest a lot easier about having to remember all these passwords, and you can create longer, more unique passwords. And a third thing that I didn't mention about this, if you do create a longer, more complex password, here's a great strategy. As you create it, think about a sentence that could represent every character in your password. So you can say that in your mind as you're typing it in, and it will be a mnemonic to help you remember it first and foremost, and it should keep it very secure for you as well.
Those are called something. What is the proper word for that? Because
I thought it was mnemonic.
Is it? Okay, but, I believe you. But
I'm
I think
foreigner, so what do I know?
Well, you know, whenever your teachers used to teach in elementary on how to spell a word, because I can still remember how to spell geography. Georgie eats old gray rats and paints houses yellow.
Yeah.
I mean, I can always spell that because of that.
No, that's great though. Good job on that front for sure with that. So anyway, there's a few things to be thinking about as we're focusing on internet safety and stuff like that. And as always, if we can help you at all, reach out, and we'll be happy to see what we can do to get you moving.
Absolutely. I love the 8 tips. And whenever it comes to National Internet Safety Month, I think it's a great time to expand upon digital literacy in the adult education world. It is a great moment to share and expand our students' digital literacy, because all of this it's part of it. And you're right in the sense of the pandemic and our reliability on the virtual world made it more comfortable, and we let our guard down a little bit. So
we did, and we have an opportunity to help shape that in the adult ed world, and it would be good to be good leaders in that regard. So some of these things are helpful, but like I said, we can boil it down to just a couple things. If you'll just get really good, one thing, if you'll just get really good secure passwords, a bunch of this will go away.
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line.
Go get yourself some good passwords.
There you go. I've got a store where I sell passwords if you're interested.
Too funny. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for Tech Talk National Internet Safety Month. Next month in July, guess what? We're taking the month off. Yep. But we'll be back with you in August for, what was it again?
I think we're going to do some enrollment boosting ideas. School starting back, you're getting in the groove again. What can you be doing to go find a few more students out of the bushes and so like around in your community?
Sounds good to me. So that's it. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.